We have a very small patch ahead of us. A patch that is basically a nothing burger that will change practically nothing about the game. Zaheen has been off to a powerful start, and after the micro patch he's relatively stable. For regular players he's stabilizing out, but seems a little stronger in higher levels of play right now, especially with what we're seeing out of his early mastery growth currently. We intend to nerf him in 25.24, but haven't yet decided what nerf or by how much, and want a bit more information before we act. Okay, so it will be nerfed, interesting. It will be nerfed again, is what they're trying to say. That's fine. His win rate is still pretty good. The nerf they did probably wasn't enough, which makes sense. But, you know, I just hope they don't follow the trajectory of Ambassa, because Ambassa, for some reason, is just allowed to be OP for God knows how long. So, yeah, maybe, I don't know. I hope this champion is also not going to be like that. We don't think he's so overpowered currently that he can stay in this state. Okay. Bloodline has fallen a little bit behind Alacrity, especially for most champions, so evening it out a bit here. So, they buffed Bloodline already like a patch or two ago when the rune changes happened. Now they're buffing Bloodline again. So this is the second buff to Bloodline. I wonder if maybe Riot should consider decreasing the amount of stacks to fully stack Bloodline, because the big difference between Alacrity and Bloodline is that Alacrity stacks faster, but maybe that's not really necessary. Maybe we just have to bump up the lifesteal more. Jungle changes. We're monitoring a lot of feedback coming in over the last few patches about the jungle changes, doing a few small top downs to get some to top end into a better state. Overall, some of them are still not particularly viable, but not looking to take another swing at them at this point. So it seems like no more jungle changes, hopefully. I mean, it's at the end of the season at this point, right? We're gonna get hopefully a big patch soon, so yeah, it's probably better to keep the role similar. Mel changes dispatch are aimed at a bit at reducing frustration. The lingering of her E-zone and the particle are slightly mismatched. This follows the behavior of several other similar types of spells, but is resulting in a little bit more frustration that we think is worth it. Emax is also being reduced in power level and being a little bit more costly for her to cast. Okay, so there's a lot here to talk about. I mean, not really. The changes are small. So, for example, you know, we have a Braum change here. 20 HP on Braum early game, and then post-stun bonus damage is going to go up by like double. So Braum is going to do a lot more damage after he stuns you, which is mostly an early game buff, because later in the game, I mean, how much does Braum really out-attack you? Not a lot, right? This does make it so Braum is more incentivized to take attack speed shard. Now, I don't know what Braum players currently take, whether they take CDR or attack speed shard, but maybe attack speed shard is like a little bit better here, right? But the thing is, like, what I'm trying to say is, you know, this is not a big change. I can tell you, Riot is aiming at 1% win rate here, right? 20 HP, usually 30 is 1%, and then a little bit more of a passive buff. Okay, they're aiming at 1% win rate to Braum. But this is the type of change that literally takes them like 1 hour to make, right? It's like someone just comes up with, let's buff Braum, he comes up with some like whatever he wants to buff, and then like he tweaks the numbers up. It probably takes them 1 hour to do this, you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering, like, how many people are even making these patches currently, because it just feels like most of the changes are these small changes that takes them very little time to make, right? Like Nemesis is so similar, right? Nemesis, oh, hey Nemesis, you'll get 19 HP and 5Q damage. Yeah, they're aiming at 1% win rate again on Nemesis. It's like very obvious what the targets here are. And yeah, I mean, Nemesis will be always a better champion in low MMR than high MMR. And it is true that Nemesis has fallen off a little bit, sure. But I'm also not sure about like buffing his early game. I mean, it's good that they're not buffing Emax Nemesis, because that was kind of toxic, right? And this type of buffs are going to help Nemesis in good matchups more so than anything. But yeah, okay. So here we have maybe the most interesting buff of the patch. Sejuani is getting quite a lot of changes here. So Riot has kept Sejuani kind of low win rate for a long time because of professional play. Sejuani hasn't really been prioritized in professional play in a long time, and also there's Fearless now. So Sejuani technically has rooms to be buffed. They're buffing Sejuani not only for jungle here, but also for solo lane, especially some off-tank AP builds. She has some items that she can use, like Roa maybe, like Reef Maker, like Liandry. So some of these changes make sense. Q cooldown down by 1, so a buff overall on Q. Q mana cost down by 10, so this is basically a jungle Sejuani type of buff, because not lane Sejuani, sorry, because lane Sejuani struggles with mana a lot. And you can maybe go like phase rush for mana flow, and then you go maybe like a Roa. Maybe that's gonna be the build, I don't know. Mana cost down by 5 on W, R cooldown down by 10, and early game, which is a big deal. Q AP ratio up by 15%, W AP ratio, W1 AP ratio up by 10, and E AP ratio up by 10. So we see a lot of AP ratio buffs, but you have to understand, first of all, very small AP ratio buffs. Even though it's on multiple spells, the numbers are very small still. The second of all is this champion does not build a lot of AP, even if she goes top lane AP-ish build, right? She's not going to be full glass cannon AP ever. She's going to be building items like Roa, Reef Maker, as I said, and her max build is going to be around 200 to 300 AP. So it's not a lot of damage that she's getting with this AP ratio buff, so don't get fooled by this. Her mana costs, okay, they're nice, right? But how often are you using Q compared to how often are you using W? So it's like, I don't know. I assume she might still need tier or like a catalyst or something, right? I think it's probably not enough to make her play a no mana item. And yeah, I don't know. My problem with lane Sejuani is that I think if she becomes strong enough stats-wise, she will be the new Nautilus of mid lane, is what I think. Because Sejuani has this thing where she one-shots the wave because her W is not nerfed to minions. So if she ever becomes really strong in solo lane, I can see this being really strong on mid lane specifically, because I think she will just be able to one-shot every mid wave. And remember that G2 used to play like Belva Sejuani mid-jungle combo back in the day. Overall, I'm assuming this is going to be at least 1% winner to Sejuani. Moving on to Swain. So this is really interesting. Swain is getting another buff after last patch. Now, if you look at stats, Swain statistically is at insanely high win rate in mid lane and bot lane, ADC specifically. Support Swain is hovering around 50% win rate. So support Swain is okay. Weakest role, but I think most popular role. Mid lane and ADC Swain, definitely elo farmers, especially in low MMR. So to see another Swain buff here is probably weird, and I think it's going to result into this champion getting nerfed at some point. Now they're buffing passive heal up in early game, so it's no longer based on level, so it's going to be healing a lot more. This is more so an early game buff than late game, because late game there's more damage in the game, and late game more people can have anti-heal compared to early game, right? But yeah, I mean, this is going to be noticeable. You land a couple more E's in lane, and all of a sudden you have a lot more HP. This is very noticeable for bot lane, mid lane, support Swain. I mean, this is just a very big buff, and I honestly think Swain will be maybe the best mid laner in the game from Iron to like Emerald for like everybody, and maybe like even ADC possibly. Like this champion, yeah, I mean, this champion is looking really strong. Victor, Q shield is going up, scaling. I don't know if this I think scales per level, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, let's take a look, because this is kind of important. Does it scale per rank? Does it scale per level? Victor Wiki. This ability scales per level. So obviously this is going to be a late game Victor buff, where he realistically, the champ has strong early mid game, not so much late game. So I think it is the right way to buff him. The reason why I really like this buff personally is because this incentivizes him to go more aggressive builds, because he's getting free HP basically in his play pattern. This basically makes him buying Blackford Torch and Leechbane more so than Rod of Ages, right? So I like this in that sense. I think it's probably the best buff they can do to Victor. I mean, maybe some people could say that, you know, maybe the champ should get lower base damages and higher scales. For example, E losing 10 damage and getting like more scaling or something would be nice. So he's not as oppressive early game, because he sees a very low counter playability in lane. But honestly, I think this is exactly a buff that Riot should do to Victor, and I really like this. He's gonna get a lot of free HP basically with Q spam. Okay, so I mean 5 buffs, right? Whatever, it's just like simple number changes here, 1% win rate, whatever here and there. Champion nerfs and important champion nerfs. So Mundo is getting nerfed, which I called last patch, because Mundo is OP right now and people are not realizing it. This champion is obviously a better jungler than Soul Laner. I think it should be the opposite. I think Soul Lane Mundo should be his primary role, not jungle. This nerf happened probably months too late. The fact that we saw a glimpse of Mundo at Worlds, and the fact that it had such a success rate, and the fact that pro players weren't even good at Mundo, I think this champion went under the radar the whole year. Kayn, Shadow Assassin, passive damage, I'm going down by 5%. So I saw a lot of people being like confused why Rengar and Kiana and a bunch of other assassins are getting nerfed, but Kayn is, not nerfed, but Kayn is, which is a fair criticism. My take on this is that I would assume this is just a China nerf. I'm pretty sure Kayn is not that big of a problem right now in like EU and NA, whatever, and maybe even Korea. But China, Kayn has always been historically a problem in China, so I'm pretty sure this is being nerfed because of China solo queue. Kha'Zix is getting 10 damage less on W, which I think is fine. I mean, you could nerf his Q damage, you could nerf his W damage. Kha'Zix is doing quite well, statistically speaking. I think the nerf here is okay. But again, where's Kiana, bro? Where's Kiana? Like, where's there so many champions? I mean, where's the Hui buff in this patch? Where's Kiana nerf? Where's, like, maybe a Rengar nerf? Where's, like, lethality items nerfs? Where's, like, I don't know. There's so many champions here, like Ambassa. Where is she in the patch notes? Where's Talon? I don't know. So weird. Mastery is getting in there because statistically, again, doing really well, especially in low MMRs. 15 less health, 80 growth down by 0.3. Probably going to be slightly over a 1% win rate. Mel is getting slammed in nerf. And I think this is probably the downfall of Emax. I think this will kill it. On-hit damage is going down by 20. This lever will completely remove her one-shotting range minions with Blackfire Torch. I'm pretty sure it is that in terms of wave clear. E mana cost going up per rank will make you less incentivized to max E first, again, which makes it that maybe the best max order will now be Q into W. Yeah. E.DPS will also go down. She gets a lot of free E.DPS because Riot mentioned this, right? But when you cast E and the E is on the ground, the lingering is quite long and the ability kind of disappears, but the lingering is still there. So people take free Comet damage, free Blackfire Torch damage, free Scorch proc if you play it. It's a lot of free damage that's kind of invisible and people are not playing around it. Unless you're a Mel player yourself, you will know these mechanics and these tricks. So this ability is losing a shit ton of damage. Mel is still gonna be... The thing is, like, Riot is saying we're going after her frustration. I don't think this will do anything to her frustration, Riot. Like, you can keep nerfing and buffing the passive where her passives are already too strong, I can tell you that much. You can keep nerfing, like, E. But frustration is still primarily in W and Q. It's not just E. And yeah, I mean, sure, you can battle it a little bit. I just think... because she has 3 frustrating spells, it's just very hard for Riot to choose what to buff. You can't just keep buffing passive. At some point, the passive just does too much damage. They're already at that point, in my opinion. What are you gonna buff next? Ultimate? Just like, this champion needs big kit reworks. And I don't mean removing an ability. I just think... I don't know. For example, okay? Maybe the solution to Mel is to swap her W and R. Do the Tomkench and Diana move. Yeah, maybe that's the solution, right? Make her W be the R. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of ideas. We can go with Mel. Yeah, I think Emax is probably that. Zaheen, sure. Zad, passive monster mod, down, finally nerfed. Zad will no longer have 40 seconds faster clear than every other jungler in the game. Okay, 30, whatever. Okay, cool. He's still gonna be one of the faster clear junglers. So, I think that will still be situationally viable. I don't think this will kill the champion. He's still gonna be very fast clear. System buffs lifesteal bloodline goes up from 6 to 6.75 at max rank, and I think this is basically right. This is rounded up, right? So it's 7% lifesteal it's giving you, I believe. I don't know if lifesteal works like that if it rounds up, but I assume it does. I don't know. Okay, sure. Okay, some champs are a bit happier. Like Jhin, for example, he will always use Bloodline, right? Or like Tristana will use Bloodline compared to Alacrity because she gets Q attack speed already. If your champion gets a lot of attack speed from the kit like Jinx, you're probably gonna play Bloodline, right? If your champion needs to cap attack speed or rely on attack speed like Zari, then you're gonna still play Alacrity. That's fine. These are very small number changes, but this is buffed 2 times in a row, so this rune is actually becoming quite good now, I think, the Bloodline rune. And that's the patch. Guess we're desperately waiting for next patch because I speak for everyone when I say we need more changes. I don't know Riot thinks that a casual League player doesn't, and they prefer less changes because they want to play a more stable game, especially like in Asia. So can't please everybody.